The US Senate decided to manipulate the messaging of college students who happen to be pro-Palestinian by saying they, in fact, are pro-terrorism. The insanity is unreal. Let's dig deep. The US Senate passed a unanimous resolution. Understand how deep this goes. Unanimous resolution condemning what it called anti-Israel, pro-Hamas student groups across the country. Now, if you had pro-Hamas student groups, that would be an issue because that's terrorism. But the Palestinians are not Hamas. This is an intentional blurring of the lines and manipulation of messaging. Following a day of walkouts, so students peacefully protested by walking out. Hundreds of students, led by Students for Justice in Palestine and Jewish Voice for Peace, walked out of classes at Columbia University, Princeton University, New York University, and dozens of other colleges, and what they described as a demand for a ceasefire in Gaza and end to US military support to Israel. The Senate resolution condemned students for supporting Hamas as part of a broader government and corporate pushback on protest over the war. Now, you see it clearly. You have a pro-Palestinian organization. You have a pro-Jewish student organization. They decided to agree that a ceasefire for the sake of humanitarian purposes is necessary. It is the right thing to do. That's called a position. That's called a point of view. That is called an agreement in messaging between two groups that many try to pit against each other. I said this on my radio show earlier this morning. You do not have to be anti-Israel in order to be pro-Palestinian, as it relates, obviously, to this humanitarian effort and America's lack of response to humanity itself. But the US Senate said, oh no, these individuals are obviously anti-Israel and pro-Hamas. You know, Israel is not at war with the Palestinians. This is Hamas and Israeli warfare. Yes. I'm going to also highlight a couple of dynamics that I think we should all at least have in the parameters of our thinking. If they can pass a resolution with two groups, a pro-Palestinian group and a pro-Jewish group, and universally say, well, they are actually pro-Hamas. So you're saying that the Jewish student organization is pro-Hamas because they agree with humanitarian efforts that, by the way, the majority of Americans agree with, that humanitarian efforts should continue and America should be on the right side of this. But I digress. Being pro a particular group, right? Being pro-Palestinian, how does that make you anti anything? What if someone led an organization and said, well, this is the pro-Black student movement. Wait a minute, we've been there before. It was in the 60s. And they called Black students communist, traitors, radicals for having a position, a point of view. They called them hate mongers for having love for Black people. I have more. As the conflict intensifies, disputes are spilling over from campuses and government into many workplaces as well. The Intercept also says recent weeks have seen pressure by government officials against student activist groups, the creation of public blacklists in multiple industries, and, well, a wave of politically motivated things over people's publicly stated view or views on the conflict. Whoa, freedom of speech, right? You know, it is quite fascinating that we have this massive response from the US Senate to basically demean what these students have done in unity. You have a pro-Jewish student group, pro-Palestinian Jewish group, pro-Palestinian group, connecting on something that obviously, well, a lot of people are separated on. Instead of people saying, you know, they're leading the way, they're helping us understand a better path forward, we would prefer to pass resolutions condemning the action. We're seeing people being fired from their jobs, being investigated by HR over their social media posts or conversations with colleagues, and having job offers rescinded because of their point of view. There is a clear trend that people's jobs are being targeted right now, said Demi Khalidi, the founder and director of Palestine Legal, an advocacy organization that seeks to preserve the civil rights of supporters of Palestinian rights in the United States. When are we going to talk about this contextualized as human rights, humanitarian efforts? You know, these are people. The individuals, and I have to always say this because it's noted for the record, and it should be every time. The vast majority of people of any nation don't want war, because the people who lose are the individuals who typically have little to no power. They're waking up in the morning, going to work hard, trying to pay a mortgage, take care of children, put food on the table. Why would we not want to stand for humanity regardless of the warfare that they did not choose for their nation? Their leaders did. There's more, a number of donors, major donors at Harvard University and the University of Pennsylvania have also threatened to pull funds following student protests and public statements in the wake of the October 7th attack by Hamas and subsequent bombing of the Gaza Strip by the Israeli military. The Hamas attacks killed roughly 1,400 Israelis. That is an evil, adverse act and should be punished. That is called murder. Period. 1,400 Israelis, mostly civilians, people who have nothing to do with war. While Israel is estimated to have killed around 7,000 Palestinians. Remember, Hamas is not the government of Palestine. They are not the representatives of the Palestinians. These are two separate groups. 7,000. The majority believed to have been civilians over the last 17 days, according to The Intercept, with the Biden administration fully supporting. The domestic cultural war over Gaza and Israel may well become a political issue, obviously in 2024. In the campaign speech in New Hampshire, Donald Trump vowed, quote, to implement strong ideological screening of all immigrants. Ideological screening? What? Yes, that's what he said. Ideological screening of all immigrants in reference to recent controversies over the war. If you hate America, if you want to abolish Israel, if you don't like our religion, which a lot of them don't, if you sympathize with jihadists, then we don't want you in our country and you're not getting in, end quote, Trump said. All of this is meant to blur the line, to provide a core a root that others who are bigoted will latch on to. Naturally, you are able, at least now, to have your opinion and freedom of speech in the United States of America. They're talking about ideological testing. That's what Trump is telling you what he will do if you ever give him power again, okay? And to simply say, if you don't like our religion, the people who founded this nation, as horrible as many of them were, the people who founded this nation were literally trying to get away from religious rule as the order of law. It was a principle of this experiment known as America. We have lost our way. We can see children dying and be heartless. Whatever side you're on, please keep in mind, humanity should be the advocacy point. Humanity should be the advocacy point. When we abandon that very simple principle and accept the framework that they have given us, this polarized dynamic where we must be this way or that way. We must choose this person or that person. No, you don't have to argue inside of their framework. We have innocent people dying. We have innocent children. We have thousands of people who may die in the future if something is not done. And if you love America, you have to love America enough to be critical of America when necessary, to be critical of your friends when necessary. Humanity, once again, should be the start and stopping point every time.